Hi guys, and welcome to my FMP presentation. So just to let you know, with my final major project, I'm going for a more personal approach and less aggressively journalistic, because for my dissertation, I'm writing heavily about knife crime, interviewed the editor for The Guardian, and doing Freedom of Information Act requests and all that sort of thing. So I'm kind of channeling my chillness and my need to explore people's lives through my FMP. Ooh. Ow, 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 ow. So, it's going to be a podcast, and in the podcast I'm going to be exploring the lives of 3 separate people and how they dealt with the first lockdown. Sounds a bit boring, but one of them is a grave digger, another musician, and the other a business owner. So let's get to know them. The first one I will be interviewing is the wonderful Else Black. And then, secondly, I'm going to be interviewing Carl Deadman. The only photo he sent to me was one of him and his child, so here's a flower. Carl Deadman is a stonesman and a grave digger, so he builds the stones that go above graves, the funeral things, and digs graves. I saw him a few times during lockdown, kind of in passing, and every time I saw him, he became a husk of himself, more damaged and more in pain because he was burying hundreds of people a day, telling me about the actual amount of deaths in Farnham and how many were being buried at the bottom of my road. It destroyed him. And because of his vulnerability and the amount of respect we have for each other, he agreed to be part of my project. So that's it. And last but not least, Caroline Maluka. I love her. She's the greatest personality you'll ever meet. She owns The Plough, a pub in Farnham. If you're in Farnham, go there, it's great. And she's the chef. During lockdown, she felt guilty that she wasn't nervous her business was going to crash, and she felt guilty that she didn't do enough. Halfway through lockdown, her chickens were sadly slaughtered, and she had to deal with the death of a hutch of chickens and also getting new ones and all that type of stuff. Her husband, Brady Maluka, was massively involved in the Black Lives Matter movement in Farnham as a prominent black male in society. He stood up at all the protests. His son almost got in a fight. Interesting and dynamic characters, and people who need to be cracked in on. People who'd usually be ignored by general media. So, why me? Why those stories and why now? I feel like the stories of general people are being ignored. You're either being given one extreme or the other. These are the people that died. These are the people who are happy living lives, booming in business. And I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk to them and get their stories out. People, local prominent people and their stories. I wanted to talk to Els basically based on the comment that Rishi Sunak made halfway through lockdown, which was this wonderful poster that, soon became torn down quite soon after. Fatima's next job could be in cyber, she just doesn't know it yet. Essentially tarnishing an entire industry that brings in so much profit for this country with a single poster, and how that has affected her as a musician and how it will continue to affect her as a musician. So my audience and reference work. So as you may or may not know, I'm an avid podcast listener. I'm always listening to them. I'm always making them. I'm always harassing my housemates with them. So the thing that these 5 podcasts have in common is that they talk to one person. Each episode is based on a singular person and they interview them to get their kind of life story. They're all separate, none of them are quite linear, and they all talk about things that are important to them, just like I will be. The important thing about this podcast that I'm quickly going to glaze over is that I want it to listen more of a book and less of a series, so each chapter will have its own kind of sparkle and need to it, which I'm currently going through with the people who are going to be involved. Sorry about the high-pitchedness. My proposed audience. So because the people in my podcast are between the ages of 34 and 60-ish, these are my 2 audiences, women who live in suburban areas and men who do, as a secondary audience, And because I have 20 seconds left, let's run through this. My distribution, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music and BBC Sounds, all things I already have media on and work on. Don't listen to them, they're a bit rubbish, but this one will be amazing. I think that's me done. Thank you.
Perfect. Look, it's just 1 to 0. That's great timing.
Any questions?
Thank you so much.
I don't want them.
I think we probably all have questions for you if we can. So can I know we've talked about this and we've chosen some absolutely fascinating people. Mm-hmm. Do be comfortable. Another big thing, and I don't know if anyone else shares this with me, is often what makes a good podcast, apart from the obvious things like somebody who's really interested in themselves and somebody who's well informed and well researched asking the questions, is always that, and there's that easy way of talking to people, which I know you do so well. Mm-hmm. There also, for me, has to be some really interesting sounds going on, or you plugging in little 20-second bits or 30 or even slightly longer of pre-recorded clips of you going with the grave digger to see what he's doing and get all those great sounds, and going into the busy pub and and seeing how people are seen in their day job. Mm-hmm. Do you have any intention to do that? I
do have lots of intention to do that sort of thing, and just to kind of introduce them, let them tell their own stories. My plan is to nowhere be the focus, do you know what I mean? So there will be a lot of kind of Foley sounds and kind of score of Elle singing and the sounds of the busy pub and Caroline in the kitchen throwing buns at people, usually at me, and that type of thing. And with Carl, I don't know how far into his job I can go just because of how personal it is. Sure. But he does have a van outside my house that I could just shake. Like, anything's possible. But yes, I'm planning for it to be somewhat of an immersive experience.
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, I have exactly the same question. But one thing is about the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Why people, that age? Why do you think this is not interesting to people your age, probably?
I think it is interesting to people of my age, but in my personal projects, I've made so many projects aimed at my age group that I'm getting a bit bored of it. And I want to explore. Yeah, I've got bored of making things for people my age because I don't understand people my age. Like I have an Edgar Allan Poe tattoo, for God's sake, I don't know us. So it makes more sense for me to make products that are similar to what I listen to. So the What the Fuck by Mark Maron and the Adam Buxton show are all very directed to like middle-aged, kind of middle-class people. And that's the kind of podcast I listen to. So it only makes sense to me to rhythmically flow that.
The age gap, because for a start, you've ruled me out of your age group, so and it's kind of thing that I would find interesting. And
to be ruled out, yes, be very interesting.
Yes, I think Sophie's in your age group, but so not in your age group. But so you're ruling all of us out, and it's a shame. So I think the idea of target audience ages is a really difficult one. I think for this one, anyone could be interested. Will some of you listen?
Yeah.
Lauren will have to. Lauren will be forced to.
Pay her, but
yeah.
Yes,
No, I agree that target audience ages are completely like they just segregate the rest of your audience, but.
Yeah, and I think there's such a sort of this is me saying this, but I think they're quite an old school idea, really. I think people of all ages listen to all manner of things.
No, 100%.
And sometimes if you have small children with you, maybe, and you're listening to something and they find bits of it really interesting that you wouldn't have thought. So
no, I completely agree with you.
So we can take that out.
Okay.
I'm just trying to move on a bit quickly, so forgive me. I know you've got something you'd like to ask. Please, Andrew.
So one, it feels like a very GCSE media question, but how are you going to paint like pictures in people's minds? Because I know you're doing a podcast, but how are you going to make people kind of picture things and to kind of immerse themselves in it?
Like I said to Adrienne, using clips of like sound bites of Caroline in the kitchen or shouting at her staff. I'm one of them. She does shout at me, and like her in the cellar having conversations with Brody, the lock-ins we have there, all that type of stuff. In terms of else, it'll be all of the kind of footage I already have of her singing, which one I tried to showcase, but hey-ho, didn't work. And with Dead Man, it will depend on what he'll give me. He is a family man. He has 3 kids. So that's important to acknowledge as well, that he's not just a gravedigger, he is also a father.
Two, about the jump off, I was terrible, by the way, about the fact that her neck job for being so... You got me criticising the Tories on camera. Are you gonna, even though I think it's awful they've done it, are you gonna allow them to have a response if else does make a comment about the government, or are you just not really gonna bother doing that?
It's a conscious choice to not let them.
Yeah.
Because what I'm exploring are people's personal experiences within it. I don't need to hear what the Tories have to say on it, because there's plenty of media for it.